Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So, should you play Fallout London? Yeah, probably. If you clicked on this video, there is a very, very good chance that you'll be interested in Fallout London, and will probably enjoy playing the mod. Bit more to it than that, and I'm sure you'd like a slightly more in-depth description as to why and what's going on, so let's dive into that. But short answer is, if you are a Fallout fan with a PC, there is a very, very good chance that you would be interested and enjoy playing this mod. There are some hoops to jump through to get there, and then there's a whole lot of stuff that we can say about it, but we'll get to most of that in a moment. First up, if you're a console player, unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to play the mod. You definitely can't right now, and I doubt that will change going forward. If you're on PlayStation, you're probably well aware of Sony's restrictions on mods and external assets and things like that. This mod is far, far, far too extensive to possibly get underneath Sony's barrier for entry, so that's pretty much a given that that's not going to happen. On the Xbox side, the primary thing that I'm aware of, anyway, would be the sheer size of the mod. It's just too big to be hosted in their existing system, unless some specific thing happens between the developers of Fallout London and, say, Bethesda and Xbox, and they can kind of work together and come to some kind of agreement at some point in the future. But as it stands, probably unlikely. I wouldn't be putting any large bets on it happening. On the other hand, if you are wondering whether or not your PC might be able to handle it, bear in mind this is built off Fallout 4, which was released in 2015, so if your PC is newer than that, or probably even newer than about 2014 maybe, there's a pretty darn good chance you'll be able to play this if you want to. So, food for thought. Obviously, the newer the better, as always, but it should be available to you if you have a PC. So, beyond that, I would simply say as an open caveat, it's a great Fallout story. It feels almost like a new game in a new location. I'm certainly getting those new Fallout game vibes that you get when a new Fallout game has just launched. If you've been there for any of the day one launches, you know how that goes. Technically, it's non-canon. It's effectively a bit older, because it's still built off Fallout 4, but it's free, so there is that as well. And the achievements the developers of the mod have pulled off during this mod so far have been mind-boggling, really. They've done an impressively brilliant job of it for a free sort of fan-made passion project. It's absolutely incredible. So, expanding out on that a little bit, what is it? Basically, Fallout London is a total conversion mod. It's a huge fan-made mod that turns Fallout 4 more or less into a new game. Obviously, lots of people, particularly non-US-based fans of Fallout, have asked the question for quite some time, what happened to the rest of the world outside of the USA in the Fallout universe? Obviously, from the games, we know what happened in the US, and we know how it developed from sort of 1950s in the US into a view of the future from that sort of starting point, and then ended with the bombs in 2077. This also affects the rest of the world as well, and this mod sets up to answer, at least in a non-canon hypothetical way, in one place, London, what happened there. So it takes most of those kind of Americana, very, very American vibes, and culture, I suppose is a good word for it, and replaces it with a British, specifically London, flavour, because it's very, very different to, say, Manchester or Liverpool or something. It's very, very London. Not terribly shockingly, given that that's where it's set. But it does an absolutely excellent job of just transposing the concept of Fallout into a different part of the world. For a non-canon free mod, I'm very, very impressed. So, is it good? Yes, it is. Yes, it is very good. You can tell it's a mod in some places. Some of the visuals look like modded production rather than big corporation, lots and lots of money to throw at it type of side of things. You can tell it's been made by a small team. Voice acting-wise, again, it's not all up to the same standard you might expect from a AAA release. It's decent. In fact, it's better than some games I have played over the years. But is it as good as you'd get in a Bethesda release? No. Does that matter? It's a free mod again. It's certainly good enough to brush that off. So, yeah, I wouldn't stress about that at all. It's maybe a notch or two down, but under the circumstances, that's kind of to be expected, really. Environment-wise, I would compare them favourably to what's in Fallout 4 anyway. They are even more densely detailed in most places. Some areas of downtown Boston in Fallout 4, to be fair, are impressively detailed, especially on PC. However, other areas are much less detailed. With Fallout London, they have really gone all in on adding as many little details as they possibly can, and the environments are pretty dense. They look absolutely fantastic. There's a lot more greenery than there is in, say, Fallout 4 as well, which is cool. And it makes for a really, really amazing environment to explore. And geographically, interestingly, they've got a setup that is closer to real-world London than the real-world locations in most of Bethesda's games. They've made fewer changes to the sort of relationship between certain geographical landmarks, you know. Bethesda obviously moved things around a little bit to fit into their game world, and that's happened much, much less here, which is surprising and kind of cool as well, because it adds an element of the familiar, if you know London, as well, so that's always fun. The one drawback to these really, really densely decorated and filled out environments, though, is it does occasionally hit your performance. You will see frame rate drops. Hopefully the devs will be able to smooth some of that out over time, and it's not the end of the world. It certainly hasn't spoiled my enjoyment of it any, but I have gone, okay, yeah, I could see that happening on occasion. But do you have a slightly more Spartan environment and it runs slightly smoother, or do you have more fascinating, interesting spaces and you might hit the FPS occasionally? Well, they've gone for interesting spaces here. So, moving on a little bit, there are new weapons, particularly new weapon skins in the game, and some of them are really, really cool, some of them are very British and fun, and I'm looking forward to diving in and finding more of these things and sort of nerding out over it a bit, because it's been really cool so far. One of the things you'll notice first is pipe weapons are basically gone in Fallout London, which is to say they've been replaced. There are now crude weapons instead of pipe weapons, and the models and designs are completely different, and to be honest, I think they're cooler. They've got interesting kind of heat shields and stuff going on, and the rework on it is obviously with an element of hindsight being 2020, so they've come up with something that looks really, really cool and different and really does change the vibe. There's also, I picked up recently a service rifle, which I think is based on a Enfield rifle circa the first half of the 20th century that was the British service rifle in that time period. So perhaps a little strange that there's still so many of them kicking around some couple of hundred years later, but they are there and they're kind of fun. They're not completely out of place, so it's a bit odd on occasion, although the model on it is absolutely excellent, so that's really cool. I haven't had a chance to try it out yet though, so we'll see how that goes. There's also changes to clothing and outfits, things like that, basically new outfits, new clothing, new styles. But rework things. I'm pretty sure the football kits we're seeing are reworked baseball uniforms, stuff like that. Obviously tweaked a bit to make them a bit more British, which is good fun. There's a few issues there with the odd texture that kind of clips through where there's combinations of things going on, and it does make for a bit of an odd effect sometimes. And some outfits do look distinctly on the modded doesn't quite work perfectly side of things, but on the other hand, it's a free mod, and it's not the end of the world. It's a little thing rather than a major issue, but you might notice it. On the whole, these small little issues aside, it's really, really cool, and it looks absolutely amazing. Combat's an interesting point. It's a lot tougher than in vanilla Fallout 4. A lot tougher. So for sort of context on that, normally when I play Fallout 4, I will play on very hard difficulty. I don't usually play on survival because the survival elements don't kind of gel in the game quite as well as I might like, and I don't enjoy that bit quite so much, so I go with very hard. It's just a bit more fun for me. Anyway, I don't die very often when playing Fallout 4 on very hard difficulty, basically because I'm very used to it. Now in Fallout London, I'm playing on normal difficulty, and I am getting whooped on a regular basis. I am dying quite a bit more, which I'm all for. I'm enjoying the increased challenge. It's something that I've harped on about, to be honest, regarding Fallout in general, as there being more headroom for a more difficult experience, and Fallout London is definitely providing some of that. I'm not quite sure why, but I have noticed particularly the crude weapons don't seem to be particularly accurate. Now, I'm not sure if that's just a trait in the weapon, or if it's something to do with tweaks to the combat system, or I just don't have these perks yet, and there's some back-end tweaks to how the perks work, so maybe my character's not very good with the gun, but it does not seem to hit the target as often as I would expect. I'm curious to see how, as we go on, that develops, whether or not it is one of those things, I need more skills or a better gun, or if it's an issue with the combat system, but I'll have to get further through the mod to really find that one out for sure. Unfortunately, we are relatively early on in it at the moment because I'm streaming it, and that does slow down the rate of progress. Well, that means you guys get to watch it if you would like to check that out. You also find stimpaks and ammo are much more scarce than in vanilla Fallout 4, and healing is slower. It's relatively slow anyway in Fallout 4 at times, but it is very, very slow in Fallout London. Food is absolutely vital as a means of keeping yourself healed up. Not so much as a survival thing, although I do believe survival mode is in the mod, so if you want to have a crack at that, if it's just not, torturing you enough, then the option is there, but you will definitely need to be picking up food and water and stuff to keep yourself healed because you will not have enough stimpaks. And you'll probably want to save those for emergencies when you take crippling limb damage in a combat scenario and desperately need to fix that. Mind you, if you're out of combat, that will heal on its own, so flip side of that. But yeah, all in all, it comes together to make a much more gritty and tough version of the Fallout 4 experience. And I think that works quite well both with the setting and with upping the difficulty a little bit. But it's something to know about before you dive in. If you normally play on a harder difficulty and expecting the same experience, you're going to get a bit of a shock. One of the other things that is obviously worth mentioning is the settlement system of Fallout 4. It is present in Fallout London. There are a number of settlements to find and unlock. Some are tucked away behind quests, and others you can find through exploration. From what I understand, there's about 7 of them, I think. I haven't yet to find any myself, but I have read that they are out there, so that's something that we'll have to look on down the road at, but it's kind of cool that that is back. I do get the impression, thus far, that they are less fundamental to the story experience compared to base vanilla Fallout 4. So if you're not into the settlement side, it should be easier for you to ignore it, but it is present if you are into that, so definitely going to be diving into that when I find out more about it. So yeah, overall, Fallout London does an amazing job of capturing the essence of London, as it potentially would be in the Fallout universe. It does it visually, culturally, geographically. It's absolutely remarkably impressive. Obviously, it's not one-to-one with real London or exact, but it really does feel like London. And that big kind of question that's out there is, what happened to London? What's London look like in the Fallout universe? Non-canon, as I've heard before, but this kind of answers that question, or provides a potential answer, a potential non-canon answer to that question. And yeah, it's really, really cool for that. They've done an amazing job of making it feel both like Fallout, due to the style, the setting, and the gameplay, but in a different country with a different culture, but that's part of the same world. So yeah, very, very impressive. Character creation. I'm sure there's a few interested in that one. It's an extension of what is present in vanilla Fallout 4. The situation's different, the location's different, there are a couple of things that are added onto it, but fundamentally it is going to be quite familiar to you. In terms of new things, character creation has a whole extended range of hair colour and style options, and the same for beards, and there's a few more presets to start off with as well. Otherwise you change things much the same as you would have done before. It's worth noting sometimes though that the character creation UI can occasionally bug out a bit, and you'll find things like options to change hair colour and style, and beards as well, might disappear. What happened to me was that I changed a bunch of stuff, then came back out and tweaked the face a little bit, and then went to readjust the hairstyle later, and the option to do that never came up. If that happens to you, you'll have to back all the way out to the main menu and basically start again, which is not really the end of the world, given you don't get much earlier in the game than character creation, but that can happen, so it's something to be aware of. Hopefully they'll sort that one out, fix that issue before too terribly long, because the devs are planning on polishing things up as much as they can. But yeah, little issues like this are to be expected with a fan-made mod and that sort of thing. So not the end of the world, but probably something to be aware of so you know what's going on. There's also a new traits system, which is quite fun. They basically add a positive and a negative effect to your character for kind of flavour effects. So there's one of my favourites is the kamikaze trait that means your action points regenerate much faster, but you also take much more damage in combat, or weapon damage anyway, which is pretty cool, and enhances that difficulty a little bit as well, which is always fun. There's another one that is called Sleepwalker, and it's kind of a variation. It's Fallout London's equivalent to Wild Wasteland from New Vegas, in that when you sleep in a bed, you can wake up anywhere. The screen fades to black for the sleeping thing, and then opens up again. You will be somewhere different after you awaken. Not really what you want to do if you want to experience the story without messing around with it too much, especially if it's your first run through, but if you want a weird, throw a spanner in the works at every opportunity kind of experience, then it'll certainly do that. Incidentally, if that's not showing up, you need to make sure that you're launching the game through the Fallout 4 script extender executable, because this is one of a number of things that are tied into that. In fact, this whole mod requires that, but it's kind of easy to miss it. It'll launch without doing that if you go through the wrong approach. So yeah, short version, make sure you use the script extender to launch it, otherwise you won't be getting things working the way they should be. FYI. We'll be coming back to that sort of thing in a minute, but one last thing before we do, quest side of things. I don't have a vast amount to say on this other than that I am enjoying it so far. I would say they are at least up to the standard of vanilla Fallout 4. Other people I've heard saying good things about them as well, including people talking about the variety of them, the types of objectives and the places they send you and that sort of thing. I haven't done enough of them yet to really have a strong opinion one way or the other on that, but my first impression on it is that they seem at least as good as vanilla Fallout 4, so that's a strong start. Anyway, it's fun to do stuff for these people, and the quests that they're giving me tie into their needs and their characterizations and stuff within the world of Fallout London. So they make sense, they line up well, and they're interesting. It's cool. I'm really enjoying. So talking about the installation side of things a little bit, to sort of bring this to a conclusion, if you are wanting to play this and you are not particularly an experienced modder, or not a confident modder at the very least, then the simplest way to do it is to buy Fallout 4's Game of the Year edition on GOG. And you'll have to pick up Fallout London either way from GOG, so you're going to be there anyway. For the simple reason that if you're on Steam, you'll need to roll back the next generation update, whereas if you're on GOG, you won't have to worry about that. I should say, by the way, that it's got to be one of these two storefronts if you do want to play Fallout London, as it's not available through Epic or through Microsoft Store. You can't add the mod to those versions of the game at the moment, so GOG or for Steam. Like I say, GOG, nice and easy, just install Fallout 4 from there, then install Fallout London on top of it, done. Simple as that. I will link down below the Fallout London website, so you can take a look at that. That's got step-by-steps on everything you need. Absolutely do recommend that. I'm also going to put some other links down there for some useful stuff on YouTube as well that some other people have done that might be helpful if you are setting up Fallout London. If you are attaching Fallout London to your Steam installation, it's considerably more complex. Firstly, you have to roll back the next generation upgrade, unless you've managed to avoid that in the first place, but you probably haven't, and you definitely haven't if you're reinstalling Fallout 4. So there you go. There is a downgrader tool available from the Nexus. It's basically a mod that will roll it back for you. It's supposed to do that automatically. You can find links to that on the Fallout London website. Again, I'll link that down below. But for me, and for a goodly number of other people, the downgrader did not work. Some people apparently have had no problems with it at all, and that's great. But for a lot of us, it just didn't work. So, for whatever reason, that will require manually downgrading, which can be done. The steps are all listed on the Fallout London website. If you have a look at the release section of that website, there is literally a walkthrough on how to do it. It's not complicated. As long as you know where to find your game installation, it's a case of copying and pasting the right files into the right folders. It's not particularly difficult. It is kind of time-consuming because you're sort of manually installing an older version of the game rather than going through the automatic process we normally would. And there's a lot of file names that are not immediately obvious unless you're really into that kind of programming, game development side of things as to what they are. So keeping up with the names, you're better off doing this in one sitting and then you don't lose your place, is what I'm saying. It's quite easy to lose the place in the list as you're manually copying files across. But yeah, just be on the careful side, make sure you know where you're up to bit by bit, step by step, and be sort of concentrated and carefully and organised about how you copy stuff across, and you should be fine. As I say, it's just not particularly... the file names are not particularly memorable, I think is the short version of the issue there. Another thing that's worth mentioning is the high-resolution texture pack, and this applies to everybody. Don't use it. It's basically a DLC that comes certainly with Steam. I don't know if it's a thing on GOG, I don't think so, but nonetheless, you don't want that in there. The simplest thing to do with it is find it in the Fallout 4 installation folder, and just delete those files. If you've gone through all the steps to stop things updating automatically, which the Fallout London website will talk you through, then you shouldn't have too much problem once you've deleted those. And next time you want to play Fallout 4, you'll have to uninstall the whole darn lot, make sure everything's deleted, and then reinstall Fallout 4 from scratch. There are other ways of doing this, but you'd have to research that on your own. But the high-resolution texture pack is just simple enough to delete, and you want to do that because whilst it does actually improve a few textures in Fallout London, it also interferes with some of the reskinned objects. So an easy example is Abraxo Cleaner, which you'll find cluttering the Fallout 4 world, has been reskinned into a different brand in Fallout London, and the text doesn't align with the visuals if you have the high-resolution texture pack on because it's overwriting things. So there's an example. Basically, if you want the full experience, get rid of it. Some people have also reported crashing issues. I know I had a few myself, usually going from internal spaces to the external London part of Fallout London. There is a mod called Buffout 4, which is recommended by the Fallout London developers, and it's supposed to improve on things like this. I will link a Reddit post in the description as well, which will talk you through installing Buffout 4 and where to find it and that sort of thing. Going through all that, it's not particularly difficult to install a mod. There are a few dependencies that you will need to make sure you've installed as well. So basically it comes to a total of about 4 simple mods to install. And once you've got all that in place and running, you should then have most of those crashing issues fixed. Not everybody's had issues without this, but as far as fixing some of those issues and making sure things run a bit more smoothly, this is a solution that is recommended by the Fallout London developers. So there you go. There's some thoughts and information on the installation side of things as well. If you're not the most confident with it, stick with GOG. It's much, much simpler. If you're on Steam and you are confident, you can go that way. Incidentally, if you're wondering about timings of buying Fallout 4 on GOG, as I say, you have to buy Fallout 4. Fallout London's free. They do have regular sales though, so keep an eye on that if you want to save a few pennies on the GOG purchase. All in all, there is a fair bit to it. You are modding Fallout 4, and that does involve a certain level of knowledge and know-how, which is not particularly difficult. It can be intimidating at first, but it's very, very doable. And yeah, if you've got any experience with doing that at all, then this is well worth looking into and playing, and I am thoroughly impressed with how Fallout London has come out, what the dev team behind it have achieved, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it and looking forward to diving back into it. I'll also make a point, seeing as we're here, of linking my live streams of Fallout London down below, and you can sort of see what my experience is for the first couple of parts, the beginning of the mod, and hopefully things will smooth out in subsequent parts, the few issues I have had, because I hope I fix those. But yeah, as I say, I'm very, very much a fan of this. But for now, I will leave that one there. So I absolutely think if you're into Fallout, then Fallout London will be very, very interesting to you, particularly if you're a British Fallout fan, obviously. But I think if anybody wants to see a hypothetical Fallout in a different space, or see what's happening in different parts of the world, at least in theory, obviously non-canon, but then this is definitely a good place to start and have a look at. And yeah, it's very impressive. As I say, some extra resources for you down below that will be quite helpful, I think, as well. So yeah, don't let it intimidate you too much if it's something you haven't done before, but if you are an experienced modder, what are you waiting for? Dive in. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. If you did, we've got social media links, all the links I mentioned down below as well. Hopefully some useful information there for you. Likes, subs, notification bell, all that good stuff if you want to keep up with what's going on the channel. I very much appreciate channel memberships as well if you want to support the channel that way. Hugely helps out. I massively appreciate that. Massive thank you to everyone who's done that. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.